All right, real quick review on the Patriots. I read this a while ago, and so I want to look back. I'm getting back to making these reviews right after I read them because it's so much more powerful. But it's the Patriots: Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and the Making of America. And I should have written down the author, but I don't have the author's name. But this was my first exposure back to the Revolutionary War time period. Really, I haven't read great books on the Revolutionary War time period yet. This was the first one of my getting back into that era, studying that studying that era. Um, and this was so much better for me than just a biography about one of the founding fathers. I liked the setup that this author did. You know, really, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. He gave great, each chapter or section of the book was dedicated to one of those three people, and so you kind of grow up with in the first third you get a third of a third for each character in the first third as they're growing up into adulthood, and then it follows them into that adulthood, and then it follows them into their later years, and all the timelines kind of work together, and you get to learn about all the different founding fathers, the three of these in this particular case, in one book, and you get the highlights from all of them without reading an in-depth biography. Now, I mean, then you can pick your favorite and go and read an in-depth biography, but if you're trying to get an overview of these guys and their backgrounds in a better way, more effective, more efficient way, then this book's for you. It was well done. It was really well researched and written. I loved the pacing of the book and the length of the chapters and the information that he gave on each person, covering schooling, background, biases they might have had based on their family backgrounds and upbringings and from where in the world they were from. And it really intrigued me so much that I want to go to Boston and see the battle sites, some of these memorials where Paul Revere and John Adams and Sam Adams grew up, and I think you can still see their burial sites. And in some case, I think Sam Adams is in Boston. So, and the USS Constitution, the Navy, all that. I mean, fascinating. Lexington and Concord. There's so much up there that's just great that this book talks about and gives you great information, but not too much. So it's like you keep moving through it, and by the end, you know quite a bit about that era and quite a bit about these guys, and not just one of them, you know. And so I really enjoyed it. It was well done. I'm trying to think what else. I loved the older later years. You know, Benjamin Franklin seemed kind of savage. Like he'd go over to France and he would party and he would really get around with all these different types of women. And it was like I didn't know that. You know, John Adams' relationship with all these people, you know, they all knew each other. They all at sometimes had to work together. And so this book kind of takes you in and out of their relationship and who hated who and who fell out with who and when and why. And also their marriages. Like it takes you into their marriages. And John Adams taking these ships with his son, across to Paris, and these 2-3 week long voyages that are just sick, nasty conditions. Crazy that all this happened. Being sent on behalf of the United States to go and negotiate things. And then by the time you get there, there's something significant that's happened that kind of renders your trip pointless now. And, it's like that's what they did. And so, very interesting there. Later, I did not know that I believe it was John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Oh gosh, I hate it's so embarrassing because it's been so long ago and I've forgotten it already. But I think those two they died on the same day, July 4th, like within 9 hours of each other. On the day they signed the Declaration of Independence, just years later, they both die on the same day after having written each other that they were ill and that they wished the other a long, happy life. They both die. And then even in Thomas Jefferson's case, the I think it was the slaves or family on the property recorded a thunderclap. As soon as he took his last breath, the storm that was nearby exploded with a thunder. Very dramatic, and all of that's recorded in history. And And so I thought, boy, that's interesting. That's a piece of history that gets overlooked. That these two were enemies, but then they reconnected in their later life, and then eventually forming a great relationship post both of their presidencies, and then dying on the same day after wishing each other good health was pretty wild, especially on the day they signed the Declaration of Independence. So yeah, you get a whole lot of different information about these guys, and then of course the events of the Revolutionary War, like the Boston Massacre. You get both sides, unbiased. What really happened? What do we think really happened? And so very cool stuff. Very cool stuff, and even their relationship to the king in England and in France. Doing dealings over in France. There's some great information on those, and when they traveled over during the French Revolution, how dangerous that was, and what was happening with the beheadings. So you get all that too. But great job, and I forget the author's name, and I didn't write it down, but I have some favorite quotes from the book that I wrote down. A man of striking intelligence, remarkable presence, and driving ambition, Alexander Hamilton tried to outrun his beginnings most of his life. He was overcoming. That's what I'm talking about. The author does a good job of talking about their background and coloring their life based on where they came from and why they were who they were. That was really well done. So you get a true understanding of who these people were. Thomas Jefferson was a true Renaissance man. John Adams was obnoxious. He said so himself. He talked too much, and he wrote that he wished he didn't. He was irritable, and he wished that he wasn't irritable. And, it's like, that's so cool. That's so cool to hear it put that way. In biographies they go into a lot of detail, and you get a good understanding of who these people are. But if you want to save time and learn more about people, go more for volume than you do depth, then this book's for you. So check it out. The Patriots, Alexander Hamilton, Jefferson, John Adams, and the Making of America. Great little read.